I recently returned from a 4-day fit workshop where I learned the Palmer Pletsch method of tissue fitting and altering. Now, I've got my pattern ready to go. I've got my fabric all cut out and pinned, but I still need to fabric fit and then get the whole thing sewn up. Can I get this dress sewn in less than 3 days so it's ready to take on my trip this weekend? Keep watching and let's find out together. Hi, I'm Tony and this is So Lounge. Now, the pattern I'm working with is the Cielo pattern from Closet Core. I'm going to be making view D, which is not shown in this picture. It is this longer sleeve dress that kind of has gathers on the shoulder, and they're kind of three-quarterly funky lantern kind of sleeves. It's just a boxy dress. It has bust darts. It's pretty easy, which is why it met the criteria of a pattern to fit during the workshop and then bring home and sew up very, very quickly. I found this gorgeous lawn fabric at Louisville Fiber, which is actually a yarn shop, but they had some really gorgeous fabric in the back, as you can see from this lovely print. And I thought it'd be super pretty. It's lightweight, it's gonna be flowy. I think the sleeves are going to look gorgeous. Now, I've got everything pinned together, but let me show you how the paper pattern fits, and I'm gonna show you what I did to it, and then how I made it up into fabric. This is an independent pattern, so it does not have the Palmer Pletsch fit lines drawn on it, but the good news is you can use the Palmer Pletsch system with any pattern. So I'd already done a couple of patterns that were using their system and their patterns, and I decided I wanted to do something pretty easy and fast that I'd be able to whip up for an Easter dress once I got home. So when you're doing the fit method, you're supposed to be able to do it by yourself. This is a little bit more challenging right now because I do not have a very large full-length mirror, but I will be getting one, so bear with me while I show you the process. So first off, you want to have the center front on the center front of your body. So I'm going to put a pin in here so you can kind of see where that is. And it's a little wonky because I'm trying to hold this and pin at the same time and not knock off my microphone. Okay, there we go. So you want to make sure this is here. You want to make sure that this shoulder seam is here at your neck. That all looks good. Let me get this in the front. And I pulled out my bust dart apparently at some point. So let me just pin this in quickly. Basically what you're doing is you're pinning all of the darts, any seam allowances, and you're pinning them all to the outside so that then you can put this tissue on and then see how the fit works. So you want it to be lined up on the front. You want to start here at the shoulder. Make sure that fits through this part here and it's all lined up. And then you want to make sure it's on your center front. So that's what I have going on here. The center back is a little bit harder because I can't see the back of me, but I think that feels about right where it should be. This is cut on the fold on the front and the back, so it's not quite the same as if I had to put in a zipper, and the center back would be a little bit off. The center back is going to be right where it feels like it should be. So I did some minor alterations to this pattern. You can see there's a lot of paper addition on the back and really none on the front. So the adjustment I made on the back is this first one where you can see it goes down the entire length of the pattern. This is a broad back adjustment because my back is a little bit wider through the shoulder here, and the pattern was a little bit tight and it was pulling once I had all of these kind of marking points or anchor points, if you will, in the right spot. It was still a little bit tight over my shoulder, so we added in a 1/2 inch there. The other thing we did is adjusted this neck part for a forward round adjustment, which is this kind of little wedge shaped here, which adjusts the shoulder over this part of my neck. So that was kind of it. That was one thing that was very nice about this pattern, is that it was minimal adjustments. I could get it done pretty quickly, and it all worked out. So the other thing, which I probably should have started with, but since there were no adjustments there, I'm not going to stress about it. When you do this method, you always start with the sleeve to check and make sure that it's in the right spot, that it's a length you like. This will have a hem on it at the end. And then that the armscye and everything fit you okay. Now, the sleeve was okay. And then we double checked over here to make sure that the armscye wasn't too low and that everything was lined up properly. So when you check the armscye, this is very hard to do by yourself. You want about no more than 2 fingers between like the base of your armpit where the crease would be and then the armscye. So you can see that it's okay where it is. If I have my arm out, I think it's about 1 to 2 fingers. We did check that, so I'm not going to stress about it because I can't see it right now. So now that I have my dress all altered, I cut everything out in my fabric and I have it all pinned together. Let me get this dress on very carefully because I don't want to stretch the neckline. Okay. This would probably also be easier if someone was here to help me. But we're going to make the best of it. Okay, so I have the darts pinned in. I think that where they're marked is probably pretty good. I'm having a hard time seeing it just from this angle, but I think that looks right. I know that we did double check that when I tissue fit it with Lindsay. So I'm gonna go with that is the correct thing. I don't think this fabric is going to make a huge difference compared to the tissue because it is very lightweight. So I think I'm gonna take those off, mark it, and start sewing this all together. Before I get started with any project, I always like to take a look at the directions and make sure that I'm doing it in the order that the pattern instructions recommend. So we're starting with the darts, then we're going to do the shoulder seams, add the neckline with the neck facing. We are using the facing, we're not using the bias method, which is also an option. And then we're going to put the sleeves in flat. So do we still do, yes, we still do them flat for the gathered sleeve. We just have to do some gathers. And then we add the bottom cuff on. We sew it together and then flip it. Okay, I think this should be pretty quick. Fingers crossed. I am not mistaken since we are on a time crunch to get this done. One thing to note, the pattern has these little kind of shoulder yokes. I'm not really sure. It's a design detail, which I patterned out because I had a very limited amount of fabric. I did not realize this fabric was 41 inches wide, not 45, and I only bought 3 yards, which was the amount I needed. So I have done some creative pattern cutting, and the bottoms of the sleeves, the cuffs, if you will, were cut on the cross grain, not on the straight grain. So the print's going to be a little bit different, but I'm going to say that's a design element at this point. We'll see how it goes. Let's get these darts put in first. Oh, one other thing. I did change my needle to a size 60 because this is lawn and it is very fine. I don't want giant needle holes in my fabric. So that's the way to go with that. When I added the width to the back panel, I did make these shoulder seams or these shoulder pieces larger than the ones on the front. So there's some additional fabric in there so that if you put them together, they do not match up. But it's not so much that I can't just ease it in. So I'm going to put a basting stitch in here along the shoulder on the 2 back shoulder pieces. Well, it's the back piece with the shoulders, just so I can ease that in and make it fit. If there's a significant amount of additional fabric in there, for example, with my jacket that I did the fitting on, I needed to add 1 inch of width into the back adjustment, the broad back adjustment. And so I need to put a dart in the shoulder. This is not that much fabric that I would need a dart, but I am gonna put in a basting stitch to kind of gather it in to kind of look nice. In the alternative, I could also put a pleat in for a slightly different look. I think since this is a gathered sleeve, if it's slightly gathered on the shoulder, if that even shows, it'll look fine. Sometimes it's such a minimum amount of additional fabric that you can just kind of ease it in, but this is a little bit more than that, so I just want to make sure everything matches up nice and neat. Okay, so my darts are in. I'm getting ready to pin my shoulder seams together. I'm going to start at the neckline since that's where we're going to put the facing. And then I'm going to ease stitch on the back, and I'm going to sew from the bottom so that I can get that eased in with the feed dogs a little bit. The kind of interesting thing about indie patterns is some are marked better than others. This didn't have any notches on the matching for the shoulder seam, so I'm just matching the inside neckline and the outside seam where the sleeve will go in, and I'm just going to gather. As you can see, there's that little bit of extra in there, so I'm just going to gather that and then we'll sew it all together. So you can see how I've gathered it to make it fit. It's not going to even hardly be noticeable once I sew it at 5/8 of an inch. Oops, still on basting, so let me back that up and pull this out real quick, and then it's like, why is that stitch so big? Now I know. So I got my shoulder seam all sewn in. It looks pretty good. There's a couple of little teeny tiny puckers, and I was getting ready to sew the other one and realized that I sewed the wrong side of the shoulder. So the one I need to attach is over here, and then that would make my dress inside out. So I'm gonna rip that out real quick. So far, not so great. I haven't sat down and I haven't sewn in a couple of weeks, and I think that, you know, when you stop doing something, even if it's for a very short period of time, you kind of get off your sewing game. So it's kind of how I'm feeling. I'm also kind of rushing a little bit, so I think I'm going to slow it down and redo this. Rip this out real quick, and I have to re-sew in my basting stitch line because I trimmed all the threads before I double checked. So yeah, it's one of those things, but that's okay. We got time. We've got 2.5 days at this point before I leave on my trip, and I don't think this dress is going to take too long, so we shall see. All right, so I re-sewed my shoulders properly, and they turned out pretty well. One of them has a little tiny pleat back here. The other one is a little bit better. Something definitely to improve my technique on, since this is one of those pattern adjustments I will be making regularly, because most patterns are too narrow through my, like my shoulder blade. The darts are in. We're going to head over to the ironing board and press open these seams, press the darts, and then I'm going to start doing some seam finishing. Also going to press the interfacing, but let's head to the ironing board. Now that I've got the shoulder seams all in place, I'm just going to press those open before I finish those seams. I'm just going to give that a quick press. Let it cool. Let's do the other one real fast. Now, the interesting thing about the Palmer and Pletsch method is that they recommend pressing your darts up instead of down towards your waist. So this is kind of contrary to everything I've been taught in school and led to believe, but Lindsay swears by it and said that if you press your darts up, it's going to look like you have a little bit of a lift just because of the way the shadow falls. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but I'm going to try it out today. So if you have never, try to find the ham. Okay. So I got my pressing ham ready to go. I'm going to press the darts up. We're going to see what happens. You guys know I never, ever, ever do this. I always press them down. So these are tiny darts. I don't know that it's going to make a huge difference. Let me just press them to the right up direction. Let me do the other side. And then we'll see if that makes any difference. It might not look like much in this top considering it's fairly boxy, but maybe on a more fitted look, it would be more noticeable. While I'm at the ironing board, I'm going to attach my interfacing to my facings. I've already done one. It is ready to go. I'm gonna get this other one all lined up and get it pressed into place. So then we can finish the bottom of this, or stitch this together, finish the bottom, get some seam finishing going with the rest of the dress, and keep moving on to make some progress on day one. Checking back with the instructions, they want us to stay stitch at a 1/2 inch. I need to double check that this is a 1/2 inch. Yes. from the center front to the center back, and then on the other side to repeat it. So it's a good thing we press those seam allowances open since we're going to be crossing them. The trick, of course, is to not stretch out the neckline while you're putting in the stay stitching. And the thing is that the instructions actually do say to finish the shoulder seams before the stay stitching, and between ironing and coming back, I promptly forgot to do that. So, yeah, it pays to read the instructions and not just do what you want to do. Usually, though, I have to say that stay stitching is something that I do usually sooner than after I've sewn things together. Usually that's like the very first step is to do that and then sew the shoulder seams, but for some reason they wanted us to do it this way. So here we go, back at it, 1/2 inch from the outside edge and resuming. I'm gonna kind of eyeball where the center back is because this was all cut flat. So I do not actually know which is the exact middle, but I think this is close enough. And then I'm just gonna skip and move forward again. Reading the instructions again. So now that the stay stitching is in place, ensure back and front neck facings have been interfaced. Check. Finish the longer curved edge of the facing with either serge or zigzag stitch. So I'm going to go finish those. Then apparently we sew them together. I don't know why. It's going to make for a chunkier seam, but I'll go do it now. I don't usually film this way, but the ironing board is on the other side, and this is going to be the better way to do this right now. So, oops. I've got my honey is under here, so I'm a little contorted to try and get this all working without disrupting her. Okay, so I had the blade down because when I was doing the shoulder seams, I didn't really want to trim them. But this looks horrible, so I think I'm going to put the blade back up and trim off the edge. And I need my scissors because there we go. I think that's going to look better. It's probably going to feed a little bit better because it's kind of bunching here underneath. So let me just start this again. Okay. Okay, there we go. Now it's up. If you're wondering, I am using a 3-thread narrow overlock to finish this outside edge. Okay, that looks much neater on that edge. And I'm using very lightweight interfacing. I bought it at the Quilt Fest, I think. I'm not really sure where it came from, but it is not the usual Pellon. It's a little bit lighter, which is really good for this lawn. So let's do the other side of the facing. There we go. And then I'll go sew these together. So I came into my sewing room and sat down and started working, and I've been working for about an hour and just realized that I probably should be filming this. So what I have done so far, let me back this out since I hadn't started stitching yet. I finished the neckline. I got this mostly done yesterday, so it was very slow progress yesterday. Things were not going super quickly. I did sew in my little label, so I'm super proud of that. I decided not to top stitch the neckline because I feel like top stitching gives it a more sporty look, and just the way this dress is going, I'm loving it without any stitching here. I will go back in once I put the sleeves in and tack the facing to the armhole or to the shoulder seams. I have put in, oh, is that the one that's in? Oh no, that's not the one that's in. Oh no, don't pull it out. Okay, so I have one sleeve in and I got it all gathered. I got it all put in place. I am totally loving this fabric. It's from Louisville Fiber Supply. If you're in Louisville, go check it out. They have some gorgeous, gorgeous prints. So this is the sleeve that is just pinned in. I was just getting ready to baste it in place to make sure that the gathers all look even. This is one of those times when I wish Grandma was here, because Grandma would get my gathers like perfectly even front to back and they would be perfect, but she is not here, so I'm gonna have to do the best that I can, which will be not as great as Grandma's. So I'm just going to get this basting in and then check it. And then I'll put the final stitch in, and then I will go ahead and, I think the next step is to sew the cuffs together. Oh no, sew the side seams together, then we'll sew the cuffs and move on to get this finished. Progress is going pretty well today, and so I'm happy about that because yesterday was very, very slow going. Trying to figure out what this lump is, and it's the bust dart. So that's where it's supposed to be. Couple of things I have realized since I have been sewing. I added an inch. I put it this way, I didn't add an inch to the side seam, but I evened it out to an inch. So there's an extra 3/8 of an inch in the side seam. And based on the way this top has to be constructed, with the sleeve and the side seam all going into one seam, I realized that in a different style pattern, this could cause quite a problem because you might have too much ease in the side seam. And then to try and have to adjust it through this armhole seam starts getting a little dicey. What I'm going to do, since this is boxy anyway, I'm just going to sew the whole seam at 5/8 of an inch because I still have to finish the cuff on the sleeve, so I cannot change the size of this outside seam because I need to match everything up. And then I think for future reference, when I do a Palmer Pletsch fit alteration to a boxy dress, I will leave the 5/8 inch seam allowance alone at the side seam because usually there's enough ease to account for any, fit issues that I don't need to add that extra seam allowance. And the other thing is, like, if it's a fitted garment, then I'm probably just going to be making a skirt and not, or putting the sleeve in differently. If this was a set-in sleeve, this would not be quite the same problem. I actually need to find out about this because I was reading the book. I didn't see anything about the construction aspect of the sleeve seam versus the side seam. And obviously we want to make sure those all match up. So just one thing I've thought about. The other thing I realized is that I didn't do a great job transferring the marks for the sleeve from the pattern to the dress. So that's another thing I just need to keep an eye on for future reference. Obviously with the big 4 commercial patterns, it's a little bit easier because, all the markings are very standard. With this indie pattern, I had a little bit of a harder time seeing where all of them were. But that's just some things, considerations for future sewing projects. My side seams are all sewn up and I am pressing them open using my little sleeve hand because I found that that way you don't have to worry about accidentally pressing your seam allowances into your fabric, and it keeps them all nice and neat. So that's what I'm doing, and then I'm going to go finish these seams and then move on to the cuffs. All right, so my dress is starting to look like a dress. I have the first part of the sleeve on. I still need to do the cuff. I'm really liking this, and the good thing is that the hem is going to be pretty quick. So once I get these sleeves finished, we're going to be in the home stretch, and I can't wait. And it's only day 2, and it's 4:45 at this point. So I think I have enough time to get this finished tonight, and then I can worry about packing and doing laundry and getting all the house ready tomorrow, and not have to worry about finishing this dress. All right, so my dress is almost done. I did not get it finished last night. It seems like whenever I say that, it doesn't happen. But I did get the sleeves finished, which was a big step forward. I am happy with the way they turned out. I had to cut this bottom cuff piece on the cross grain because I didn't have enough fabric to lay it out in the straight grain, but I think it turned out fine. I don't think you really notice it. The print is pretty bold on this fabric, so I do like the sleeves. I think they're really pretty. One thing I think I'm going to go back and do is top stitch this neckline because the facing keeps wanting to flip out when I take it on and off. It seems to be staying for now, but I think I'd be more comfortable if there was some top stitching. I don't think it's going to be noticeable with the print that there is any top stitching here. So initially when I said I wanted a more elegant look and I wasn't going to top stitch, I don't think it's going to make a difference. Same goes for the hem, which I have not done yet. I think I'm going to just fold it up and stitch it and not worry about the effort of doing a blind hem stitch because at this point it is the day before my trip. I have already got my suitcase packed. I'm still doing some last minute laundry and house cleaning, and I don't really want to mess around with the blind hem stitch and potentially mess it up. The other thing, I realized that by adding that, truing up the seam allowance to 1 inch, it has made this dress a little bit boxier. It's not super tight across the hips, so I think I'm going to leave it the way it is, but that's something to revisit with the next pattern I adjust, and if I ever make this pattern again, I think I'll revisit that. I did sew it at 5/8. Maybe I didn't sew it right. I'm not sure. I have to check with Lindsay at Made Stitch and find out. But all in all, I'm pretty happy with the way that it's turned out. So I'm going to put this hem in, and then I'm going to be done. I'm going to go put it in the suitcase. So if you've enjoyed this video, there will be more Palmer and Pletsch fit patterns and sewing videos coming up in the future. But in the meantime, there's another great one coming up next. I know you're going to love it, and I'll see you over there.